Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today I have the pleasure of chatting with our American R&B singer-songwriter, NBC The Voice Season 24 contestant Rachele Nguyen. This newest episode, Rachel sat down with me to talk about her experiences on The Voice, the arrangement behind Battle's song How Deep Is Your Love, what she remembers from Vietnamese singing competition, admiration for Tori Kelly, and more. Now, with that being said, hope you enjoy my conversation with Rachel. Hello, Rachel.
Hi, thank you for having me. The way you said R&B singer-songwriter, I was like, I don't know about that singer-songwriter part, but we can try.
Well, I mean, how do you accurately describe your artistry? Because I think that's so hard to really gauge. Because when I
Mhm.
do podcasts like this, and like I see people that like have pop, folk, soul sort of combined, and I'm like, how am I supposed to describe that? Because I don't know it. Because I'm like, is it Americana? Is it pop soul? What is it? Because like I'm so intrigued by that sort of the combination of music, but they're so all over the place where I'm like, I don't know what to describe them as. So I just leave the description as like an American singer-songwriter because I don't want to really like disrespect the artist and
Oh
saying
yeah,
whatever
no
genre
problem.
they are. Yeah. But like if you could like describe to the listeners like what is your genre? Because I know that it's sort of weird to be able to hear back that sort of that singer-songwriter part that we were just talking about
I was
earlier.
like,
I was like, yeah,
yeah.
it seemed like you were sort of taken aback for a few seconds there. You're like, wait, am I a singer-songwriter? Well, I mean, talk to me about that because I'm interested.
For me, I feel that I am an R&B singer, first of all. I think I am. I really enjoy seeing like throwbacks, a lot of throwbacks. I really like that type of melodic feel it has, like R&B overall. And I feel that I connect to it and I really lean towards that type of music more. But when you said songwriter, I was like, ooh, I have not yet gotten to songwriting yet, but I'm starting off right now and I'm actually getting into it slowly and I'm like taking a leap and putting my foot in the door. And um, I started investing more in myself just to start on hopefully releasing music and like starting off with covers. And if that goes really well, I really hope that I can start songwriting and I'm gonna take a few classes because for me, out of all my friends that I've been with on The Voice, I felt that for me, I was the most kind of scared to start songwriting just because I wasn't the best at wording. And when I saw a few friends like my friend Olivia and like Julia Room, I don't know if you've seen them on The Voice, but they've already released a few songs at like the age of 14. And when I listen to it, it's like, whoa, like how were they able just to like kind of comprise those lyrics into a song and like kind of minimalize all those words in one song at once? And I was just so shocked. And I was just like, okay, I can sing, I can do all these things, and I can also sing beyond R&B, but I want to do more for myself. Like I want to start writing and like kind of putting my feel into and like just showing and expressing what I feel. So that singing song, it was like, whew, okay, I got to get into it now. So
No,
yeah.
honestly, like if you don't mind me asking, because that you were just mentioning sort of like this thing where you're saying that you want to do more for yourself, sort of moving forward. Like, what do you mean by that? Is there something specific that you're sort of aiming towards? I
Mhm.
guess into I guess in a year or so that let's put it that way. I'm not saying future wise, but I'm saying if we're being realistic, like in terms of like a year based sort of plan, like do you have anything in terms of like what you were just saying about doing more for yourself, but like could you like expand on that thought and
Yeah.
what you think about the moving forward plan, I guess.
So for me, I'm 17, but I started singing at the age of 2 and I always took music lessons and piano lessons throughout my whole life. And I feel that taking a leap into and doing the voice, I feel that it was kind of my step of like seeing what I wanted to do and seeing if I wanted to pursue that dream and career. And for me, I feel that the voice, it was kind of like a kind of stepping stone. It was kind of like it kind of trained you to see what being like an artist would be and like what your typical day would be. And so for me, I really enjoyed that whole experience. And before The Voice, I kind of felt like I kept doing the same thing, kind of just singing here and there. And there wasn't a spark for me. And I felt that there was no reason for me to continue singing. But after doing The Voice, I felt that it made me feel like there was something there and there was something I needed to pursue and there was something I wanted to. So I think that after The Voice, I felt that I did want to do something with singing rather than just kind of putting it to the side and forgetting it all. So for me, I felt that doing something with my life, I feel that with this voice that I have and with all the work that my family has put into me and supported me with, I feel that I do want to pursue this dream of singing, and I hopefully want to get it out to the world as soon as possible and just kind of make my mark and kind of just start that singing journey, because I wouldn't want the past years of my life just getting all this like vocal lessons and work from other people just to be wasted. And I also want to do this for myself. So I feel that that's what I meant by like kind of what am I going to do with my life and what I'm going to start doing too.
For sure. And like that's interesting that you say that because like I guess for yourself being that first generation of Vietnamese American, that's got to mean a lot to you as well because like for your family who sort of came to America to live, I guess the American dream as they would say. But like it's cliche to say that like the American dream because you hear that all over the place
Yeah,
of people and the different
it's
stories that they
different.
have. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's different for everybody, right? And but like when you sort of like think about just being that first generation Vietnamese American plus like being able to do singing competitions earlier because I know you were on a Vietnamese singing competition. Um, what do you remember about those days? Do you remember anything specific that you sort of just stuck out to you? And then I guess while now going through the journey on The Voice, have you been able to take like that moment to sink in that reality of like, well, I was on this singing competition back then, and now I'm here on The Voice stage, probably one of the biggest talent competition shows in America.
So I think when I was doing, it's called V-Star, the Vietnamese contest. I think that for me at the time, I was like, this is the biggest moment of my life because when I was young, I was like 7, 6, 7, 8. My grandma would actually pull out these CDs from a Vietnamese American industry called Paris by Night, and we'd always watch it together as a family. And I'd see all these Vietnamese stars just singing with like dazzling like outfits, and like they have background singers and like dancers. So for me, I felt that that was my opportunity maybe to get a chance to be able to sing on Paris by Night. And the competition, I've always seen it, but I've never seen them have like a kids version. So I was like, okay, this is maybe a step where I can just take a chance and see what happens. And at that moment, I was like, wow, this is the biggest thing I've ever done. Like, I've never done such a big production. But as I grew up and I started learning more, I was just like, that's just a little step to get to a bigger future, you know? Like, that when I compare The Voice and V-Star, like they're two different categories. Like because our Vietnamese industry is so little and there's not a lot of kind of exposure for it. At the time I thought it was going to get me my big moment and kind of like a big exposure, but when I was doing The Voice, I was like, wow, like this is just it's totally different from what you've done before. And like being on The Voice, I feel like it's like broadcasted on like nationwide TV. So I just looking back at it, I was like, wow, that was something kind of partially that helped me kind of jump into The Voice and kind of mentally prepare me for what was going to happen in The Voice as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's really fascinating because I can definitely hear sort of that realistic, that realistic reflection back to that moment of like, whoa, like you were just like you thought this is like the biggest stage of your life.
Yeah.
Like being able to like be 6 or 7 years old and you're like, oh my gosh, this singing competition, the Vietnamese singing competition is gonna be like
Like
my
being
whole
six
life.
and seven on a stage alone, I was like, "Ooh, what am I doing?" So,
Exactly. And I'm like, what I was trying to say was like, I think that like being 6 or 7 years old and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like my whole life on the line here. And you're
mhm.
like, but you're so young. Like you still
Yeah.
have a lot of life to live here. It's not like it's the biggest thing. But like I guess like in terms of like experiences, I guess that was like a really good like experience for you to now have that in your resume and to be like, now I can like go on this stage on The Voice and show that I had prior experience of being
Mhm.
on a competition show and also like being able to now showcase that talent that you had way back when you were very young.
Mhm.
Um, And like now being on The Voice, like you stepped on the stage, you sort of, I remember hearing your story, and you're like, you had butterflies in your stomach, you were just
Yeah.
nerve-wracking moments being able to walk on that stage. And then you sort of, the lights go down, and sort of the coaches start like, oh my gosh, who is coming up
Here's
next?
going. Yeah. Here's
Like exactly. And
that
then
feeling.
the lights come up, the music starts, and all you hear is a throwback hit by Leona Lewis, "Bleeding Love," which is a really good song. Just putting it out there, because I remember hearing "Bleeding Love." I think it was in my uncle's car way back when, and like I remember jamming out to that song, back then, and I'm like, it's such a
It
throwback,
just
and
it gives you
thank
nostalgia.
you. I'm like, thank you for bringing it back. Like because it's such a classic, and I'm like, man, I wish people would like do more stuff like that. Like that's a classic hit. Like I
Yeah.
remember Akon. I remember Akon's music back then.
I have no.
That was a whole nother like level of music. You should listen to Akon. It's a really good he's a really great artist. Um but getting back on topic of The Voice, like how did you feel in that moment being in a blind audition? Like, was it sort of that? I know you're saying nerve-wracking, but like, what's if you were to describe it in like one word of the emotion that you felt on that voice stage for the first time, what would it be?
Ooh, one word. Ooh, I don't know. Okay, at that moment, I'm gonna be honest. I felt numb. Numb. That's how I felt. Getting on that stage, before I got on stage, I was calming myself already. You know how you kind of tell yourself like to calm down and you're mentally calm down, but physically inside, there's just something that wants to explode so bad. And I felt that I was able to hide it at the time before I went on stage and I was waiting. But when I got on that stage, just all these emotions started coming out, just like even mentally and physically, I felt my body. I know my body. So I felt that I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a different type of feeling I'm feeling right now. And I don't know how to control it. So, but when that music like started, I was just like, okay, I just have to pull through and do what I've done. This is like what I've done for my whole life. So like there's no reason to be out there and be nervous, you know? But then obviously the nerves did get to me and I felt numb at first. Like the first part I sung, I knew it wasn't my best. Like the blind auditions, I feel like that's one of the most nerve-wracking things that you could do on that stage because the next rounds, all the coaches are looking at you, but now that you have a crowd looking at you and there's four judges with their backs turned against you, I feel that like everything about that, the whole environment at the time, I was just like, oh my gosh, like my heart rate was going up. So at that moment I was like very nervous. But along the song I was like kind of vibing with the crowd, but I did feel that I wasn't giving my full potential and my all. So midway the song, I don't know if you can see it in my face, but I was like, I looked at the judges and I was like, all right, time to lock in. So during the bridge I did perform it how I was supposed to perform, which I was really happy about. And I was really happy by the end result because Reba did turn for me and I was only hoping for one chair and hoping that one chair is all that I needed. So I was really glad that that happened.
For sure. And like, if you don't mind me asking again, like, I guess when we're talking about sort of this experience and the blind audition, but like, it's interesting how you mentioned the like unlocking your full potential and stuff like that. But like, if you could like explain in terms of like when do you ever feel like you've hit your full potential and you sort of like fully unlocked that next level of singing, I guess, or artistry, specifically, when do you feel like you sort of feel like yourself, but also like feeling that emotion of like, okay, I finally unlocked my full potential. Here's who I am. Here's who I am as an artist, in specific.
I think that I've unlocked my full potential honestly when I started doing when I was on The Voice because I felt that having that nervousness with me and singing the way I sung that just shows who like it showed who I was as a person because I feel like if I went out there being all confident like that's not me. I feel that with me I feel that I'm very soft spoken. I'm very kind of tend to show nervousness before I show my like kind of boldness. And I think I showed that on stage, honestly, because I did show nervousness in the beginning, but I showed my boldness and I showed that I was able to carry myself through the whole performance as long as with the battle round. I think that truly showed who I was because I felt that my nervousness comes with the whole package because that's just who I am. And I felt that I've honestly unlocked my whole potential being on that stage. So
Yeah, and I want to also talk about the battle rounds as well because you went up against Mac Royals and you did a song called How Deep Is Your Love.
I
And
delivered.
may I say that is such a challenging song to sing, How Deep Is Your Love. But it's a vibey song. It's a really vibey song to be able to jam out to as well. Um, I mean, take us behind the scenes of like that song choice and how did you sort of arrange it? Because I don't know if it was arranged in a different way because I guess The Voice and competition shows like this sort of I guess they arrange it in a different way and make it sound different from the original song that's already released out there. Like, how did it sort of all come together?
So when me and Matt got picked for battles, we were honestly very happy with it. And we were very like, I was kind of scared at first just because I knew I was a one chair turn going up a four chair turn. And all the judges just, they know how good he is. I knew how good he was when I first heard his voice. I was like, wow, like the fact that Reba did put us together, it kind of showed that she did believe in me, kind of. So I was kind of happy about that. And for the music choice wise, I felt that for that song, me and him picked it because we both do R&B type of soul. We have that factor in us, and we just have that kind of soul artistry in us that we can carry along through the song. And we felt that we wanted to make it very true to ourselves rather than kind of sticking to the original song. We did want to keep it true also to the original song, but also kind of tweak it a little bit just to sound more like me and Mac. So for the song, they didn't really change it for us, but Mac and me had the idea to kind of make it more lean towards the PJ Morton style and his version of the song, just because the rhythm of itself, me and him, we definitely made it ourselves, and we definitely added our own twist to the song just so that we can show the judges that our versatility and stuff. So I feel like with that song, it was just me and Mac the whole time. And we asked the band as well just to see how it went and see how it would go and see what they would like about it. And fortunately, they did like it and they did go along with our ideas. So with that song, me and him practiced day and night, like constantly. Like me and him were stuck on that song. When we found out that we were gonna get that, we were so static. Like he knew his ideas, I knew my ideas, and with our ideas, it just combined it and just we just uplifted each other throughout that song. And I feel that everybody could tell that during that battle, it was one of those battles where it wasn't us singing like over singing each other, but it was more of us kind of uplifting, kind of speaking to each other and kind of doing more as a duet. And I just really love the end result of how that song went. And luckily that both of us made it through because I don't know, that would have been a hard choice just to pick between us two because I felt that we did work so hard. Like both of us worked so hard in that song. And we spent hours and hours planning out what we were gonna do and how we were gonna do it. So I'm really happy of how it ended.
For sure. And actually, I do have a clip of that performance that I want to share with the listeners and I want to share with the viewers because it's so cool. Like I really love how you both sort of were not like sort of attacking each other, but like coming
It was
together
like us talking to
as a
each other.
one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I feel like that's how all battles should be, just because I feel like who would have thought that you would have been partnered up? For me, I would have thought who would have thought that I would have been partnered up with a guy from Arkansas. And like honestly, that's just like a once in a lifetime thing that could happen because you never get that opportunity just to collab. It's kind of like a collaboration, you know? It's not a battle. When I thought about it, I was like, this is not a battle. This is like a part where I can like kind of collaborate with an artist as well. That's kind of we're on the same level and see what would happen and see how like well this would end up. And luckily the results were amazing. So
For sure. So I'm gonna play that clip for you now because I'm so intrigued by it and I thought it was fun to share with the rest of the listeners here.
let's go for it.
How deep is your love? I really need to learn, 'cause we're living in a world of fools,
Look at us talking.
breaking us down when they all should let us be. We belong
gosh, I'd be playing that all day long.
No, so that's Rachel Nguyen and Mac Royals performing How Deep Is Your Love in the battle rounds. And for people who did not see the battles between Rachel and Mac, Rachel was selected and saved by Reba and will move on to the next round. And Mac Royals, who got stolen by John Legend, and so he goes home to John. Because John sort of has this soul type of artistry more so in his lane, which Mac sort of, I guess, when you listen to Mac's auditions and his performances, it's more sort of driven towards that R&B soul type lane, which fits everything that John Legend is about and his music
Yeah.
that he already releases. So it was a perfect fit, and I'm happy for Mac, and he's such a great performer. All the artists this season, I mean, you go down the line, from Lila Ford to Kaylee Shimizu,
Yeah.
and so many other people. I mean, Ruby Lay was a really great artist as well. Jordan Rayner. There's just a whole slew of artists this year. I'm like, these
Great.
people, yeah, these people can definitely get a record deal. I can definitely see a record deal in these artists that are on for this season of The Voice. And I mean, there is no Blake Shelton, unfortunately,
So we got
because I mean, yeah, I mean, we do have the queen herself, Reba McEntire, but Blake Shelton leaving, that's we do miss Blake on The Voice and his legacy he's created there. But I mean, at least he's living through vicariously through Niall Horan, who's also
right.
been learning from Blake. I mean, what does it mean to be able to hear sort of the compliments that he's been giving you throughout this competition, and to hear his sort of his validity and his belief in you as an artist, and to be able to, I guess, really express how you're just 17, but you have this capability to be versatile in terms of your artistry and your vocal abilities. What does it mean to hear that from, I guess, a former One Directioner?
To hear that from just a former One Directioner and or him by himself, I was just like, holy cow, like holy crap. Like honestly, his words kind of confirmed that he did want to turn for me and he did see the potential in me and he was stunned by me, and just him using his words was enough because I know that even though he didn't turn around, he did. I feel like he had this feeling that he did, and just that feeling alone, it just like made it 10 times better just knowing that he wanted to in general. And just hearing those words from him because he's been in our positions before. He went on X Factor and he has done all those rounds and he has worked his whole kind of teenage years and now working on into his like a more adult life. And I feel that he knows what we're going through and he sees the potential in me and he knows what he's like what we're dealing with as well. Just knowing that confirms it all. And I feel that it was super honoring just to hear that come from him. Like I said, just because he's done the same things we've done. So
For sure. I mean, like, Niall's been able to do a lot. He's been able to collaborate a lot. He's been able to have a lot of experiences, and that's why, like, when I have the chance to speak to yourself and people on The Voice that I've had the pleasure of speaking with, even Bryce Leatherwood, who won season 22, I think. Yeah, so Bryce Leatherwood, like the winner, being able to talk to him and his experiences, and to know what his artistry is about, and now he's a record deal, and now he's sort of now gained this whole reputation in terms of the music industry, and now he
yeah,
has a career in front of him, which is crazy to think that, like, if you can at least have those experiences prior to going on The Voice, how much that sort of helps you, I guess, now have a full-time career in music and finally live out that dream you've been wanting to live out for a long time. Um, I mean, do you have sort of that one specific like moment where you're like, I wish this moment could happen for me? And do you have any collaborations that you want to work with and people you want to, I guess, write with in terms of songwriting aspect, but also like a collaboration in terms of like a feature on a song, let's say.
I feel like for that moment, I feel like it hasn't happened yet just because with The Voice, it has been a big opportunity for me just to get the exposure. And I feel like that's the start of my career just to continue on with this journey. But I feel like I'm still waiting for that moment and I am going to work really hard to get it. Right now, I have no idea of who I'm going to collaborate with, but I'm going to start really releasing music. And I have my uncle alongside with me just because my dad's side of the family has a very musical background. And he's one of those people that they're just like musically gifted for some reason. So he would come over and he would help me kind of set up my equipment, start producing music with me, and hopefully all things go well. But I'm going to start posting music soon and hopefully I get some good end results and good kind of feedback. And I hope to produce a lot of music. And I'm currently going to start hopefully working with Kaylee, one of my best friends that I've got to know with on The Voice, Kaylee Shimizu. Me and her are on this journey together and we're going to start doing this together. And hopefully we just both become very kind of exposed to the social media, and hopefully that me and her, everything ends well with us. So me and her are working together just to kind of get a stepping start. And yeah.
Certainly, and you know, Kaylee Shimizu, who's done absolutely incredible and has
Yes.
such a gifted talent. And let me tell you, Kaylee Shimizu, I remember when I saw that first blind audition from Kaylee, I was like, whoa, she took a whole Beatles song and she flipped it upside down. And she did her own version of that song. And I'm like, that should be on a record right now. Like that version
Good.
itself should be on a record. Um, but also like just to think about like her actually being from Hawaii, but also reminding myself that like, well, who's another star from another competition show that's from Hawaii? And it brought up the thought of Iam Tongi,
Yeah.
who won American Idol, and I'm like, okay, so Iam Tongi won his season of American Idol, and now Kaylee comes on The Voice, and you're like, whoa, who is this person?
Mhm.
And what artistry did she learn from? You know, like I'm like, this is crazy. And I'm like, just watch Kaylee win The Voice. Just watch Kaylee win The Voice. And I'm like, it's just meant to be. Like to be honest, like I guess when you're like on The Voice and American Idol and the competition shows like this, there is a storyline to it always. Every season does. You know,
Mhm.
every season has a different storyline, every season has a different theme to it. You know, there's like if you want to talk about like a military sort of story, people are like, oh my gosh, you know, like that's a military story. And so that I guess not to be rude to The Voice or American Idol, I'm just saying that like there is just always a theme and a storyline to go with it. Um, and so as we're wrapping up here, um, I mean, you do have a lot of musical inspirations. I mean, you sort of are, I guess, obsessed with Tori Kelly, and you do love listen to Brian McKnight's, Aaliyah, and so much other people that you've listed. I mean, in terms of like song based, if you could choose one song that you could do with Tori Kelly and collaborate on a record with one song, not two songs, one song that you would want to collaborate with her on, what song would that be?
You're talking about her songs or any song? Like,
Her songs, or I mean, it could be any song, but her songs in specific.
hmm. Whew. I feel like, oh, this is hard. I feel like Paper Hearts. I feel like only one. Okay, I think Paper Hearts. Yeah. That song, she just wrote it out of her soul. Like she had something kind of hit her. And I felt that in the song when she was singing it. It was just her and her guitar, but you could hear it in her voice. Like you can hear that vulnerability. And I was just like, oh my goodness, she wrote that song for a reason. So yes, Paper Hearts.
For sure. And last thing that I want to talk about is I want to have some fun here because you know aside from talking about The Voice and competition shows, I really want to talk about food because
Mm,
you know Vietnamese food is one of my favorite foods.
yes.
I'm a huge fan of it. I remember when I was working at the this past summer at the Canadian National Exhibition, which is a sort of a summer fair that happens every summer here in Canada and in Toronto. I was working there, and sort of I've been sort of a visitor there every year, and I go to this Vietnamese place that they have in the food building, and it's called Pho 88. I don't know if I'm
Mm.
pronouncing that right. Am I pronouncing the Pho?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pho 88, and it's a family sort of run business.
Yes.
And I go there, and they're pretty cheap because when you go to fairs, the food are very expensive. But when you
Kind
go
of,
to,
okay.
well,
You
when
need to bring
you,
an extra $100 for food.
yeah, exactly. But when I went to Pho 88, they had a fairly priced food, and they're so good as well. So I'm like, I know the people there already, from prior visits, so I go to them pretty often. And
Mm.
while I was working there this summer, they're like, here, take my daughter's number, take my daughter's number, and sort of text her when you're coming on your break. Every time you're coming on your break, text her to make your food ready. And then you can come and pay for the food afterwards. So we've created this relationship where I'm like, I know these people, they're very nice people. The food is just banging food. I have to
Vietnamese
say.
people love to share our food, like our cuisine. We just love sharing food, and I felt that. No, and a lot of pho places or Vietnamese restaurants are very family owned and kind of very intimate with when it comes to like the working itself. But our Vietnamese people, we love to share food. Like that's one of our favorite things.
I mean, do you have a favorite dish?
Ooh. Oh, I have a lot. Let me think. Okay, a few of them I like. One of them is called bánh xèo. It's a Asian, kind of like a Vietnamese crepe, a savory crepe. It comes with like filling and like you can kind of customize your filling to whatever you like. Or banh mi. I don't know if you heard that before, but that's
The
one of my
bun, the
favorite.
bun,
Yeah,
bun
it's
mi
like a pork
sandwiches.
belly banh
Yep.
mi. Yes. So you need to go try that. Try the bánh xèo. You like it.
What is the bun seal? Tell me about that.
It's the Vietnamese crepe, the Vietnamese Asian savory crepe. There's like pork belly in it. There's shrimp, but I usually don't get shrimp because I'm very picky when it comes to shrimp. But there's some bean sprout, grilled onions, all that stuff, and it tastes like a crispy like crepe. Like you will love it. So
Oh,
good.
I like I that sounds so familiar to me because I remember the family run restaurant. I mean, I went to them and they're like, we have a secret sort of menu sort of item that like we haven't put on the menu yet. It's sort of like this crepe sort of dish, and I'm like, oh, so that's what the dish is. And
Go
they're
back,
like,
go
and
try
and
it.
and and they're like, come back on like Monday, and you will be able to give you the sample of that food and the of that dish. And I'm like, all right. And then I went there. Unfortunately, they didn't have it, but I mean, they were so busy, so I understood everything. But I mean, this has been an absolute pleasure to be able to talk to you and
Thank you.
to be
It's
able
been a
to.
pleasure to be here too.
No, honestly, like this whole thing with the voice and I've been able to talk to a lot of people.
Mm.
Um, but when I get to talk to people about sort of just different things aside from the voice,
Mm.
it's like talking about things like this, like I like sort of talking about different sort of things that people don't usually like to talk about and sort of having some fun and not, I guess, always being so
Being
serious
too
all the time.
serious. Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like
great.
that's yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you again for taking the time to talk.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I mean, thank you for tuning into the show today. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with American R&B singer-songwriter, and The Voice season 24 contestant Rachele Nguyen. Um, for if you want to follow Rachele, you can follow her on all social media platforms. You can also connect with me on my show through all my social media platforms, and you can find me in all podcast streaming platforms as well. I've been your host, Jigme Kelsang. Thanks for tuning into the show.